Artificial intelligence is the science of enabling machines to perform tasks that typically require human intelligence. Within AI, we have symbolic logic, which formalizes explicit knowledge through rules, logic statements, and knowledge graphs. A major subfield of AI is machine learning, a collection of algorithms that allow systems to learn from experience and improve over time without being explicitly programmed. And within machine learning, we have deep learning, which leverages deep neural networks trained on large datasets to capture complex patterns and perform non-linear transformations. In this video, we will focus exclusively on the fundamentals of machine learning. For decades, we tried to make computers intelligent by building systems using rules. If it has fur, whiskers, and a tail, it's a cat, and otherwise not. But what if instead of explicitly programming rules, we allow the model to learn from data, identifying patterns, forming clusters, and predicting unknown animals based on similarities? This process begins by collecting data about animals, recording features such as fur, whiskers, and tails, along with whether the animal is a cat or not. We then use this labeled data to train a machine learning model. The model analyzes patterns in the data and learns to distinguish between different categories. When we provide an unknown animal with certain features, we want the model to predict whether it belongs to the cat category or not. How does this work, you might ask yourself? Well, to simplify it, most machine learning models achieve this by taking input features, passing them through an algorithm, and adjusting internal parameters such as weights in a mathematical function to minimize error and improve prediction accuracy over time. That was a bit too much, right? Well, let's start with the basics of the fundamentals. A dataset with two features and one target class is called a two-dimensional dataset because it has two numerical features. We can visualize this by plotting the data points on a graph using one axis for each feature and color coding them based on their class. This visual representation is known as the feature space. If our dataset had three features instead of two, we could extend this idea by plotting the points in a 3D coordinate system. However, in reality, datasets often contain hundreds or even thousands of features, meaning they exist in a high-dimensional space. Since we can't visualize more than 3 dimensions, machine learning models use mathematical techniques to process and analyze these complex datasets. The next key concept to understand is overfitting versus underfitting. You can see that the line is not separating the classes very well. If a model fails to capture the structure of the training data and does not separate clearly, it is underfitting. This means the model is too simple and has a poor representation of the training data, making it ineffective for both training and unseen data. On the other hand, overfitting happens when a model is too closely adapted to the training data. It memorizes patterns, including noise or random variations, leading to high accuracy on training data, but poor performance on real-world unseen data. As you can imagine, the goal here is to find a good fit, where the model captures the essential patterns of the training data without missing important information like an underfitting or over-capturing noise like an overfitting. A well-fitted model generalizes well to new data, making reliable predictions in real-world scenarios. With these basics, we can now look at machine learning itself. Machine learning is separated into 3 categories. The first one is supervised learning, then we have unsupervised learning, and the last one is reinforcement learning. Let's take a closer look at these different types of machine learning. Supervised learning is what we have actually done with our cat dataset. We have training data that is labeled, meaning that it has a ground truth. For the instances in our training data on the left, we do know whether the animal is a cat or not, and we want our model to predict that class for an unknown instance. In unsupervised learning, this isn't the case anymore. What if we have a dataset that suddenly doesn't have a ground truth? What is our machine learning model supposed to train? And even more important, what is it supposed to predict on an unknown instance? Well, one of many techniques is clustering, where the machine learning model is recognizing patterns and groups or clusters the data based on these. It is actually up to the person in front of the computer to now name those classes, or first of all find out what they even represent. Our new instance will now be classified based on what cluster they belong to. In this case, it is class 1. The last way that machines can learn is reinforcement learning, where an agent actively takes actions in an environment to maximize a reward over time. Let's take this simple example. Imagine an agent that can move left or right on a one-dimensional grid. The goal is to reach the green area to get a plus 10 points reward, while falling into the red area results in a minus 10 penalty. At first, the agent moves randomly, sometimes reaching the goal, sometimes falling into the pit. But over time, it learns the best sequence of actions to maximize its reward and avoid penalties. This happens because the agent associates actions with rewards and penalties, gradually improving its decision-making through trial and error. Now that you understand the different types of machine learning, let's explore some example algorithms. The goal of logistic regression is to find a boundary that separates two classes, but instead of simply drawing a straight line, logistic regression models the probability that a given instance belongs to a specific class. Once trained, it produces a decision boundary, a line that divides the feature space based on probability thresholds. This allows us to classify new data points. If a point falls on one side of the boundary, it belongs to class A. If it falls on the other side, it belongs to class B. The next algorithm is one of the most fundamental ones, the k-nearest neighbors algorithm. KNN uses proximity between data points to classify them. When classifying a new instance, KNN calculates the distance between that point and all other points in the dataset. It then assigns the new instance to the class of its k closest neighbors in the feature space, where k is a parameter that we have to initially pass the model. The last algorithm we look at is the decision tree. A decision tree classifies instances by defining a set of rules. For example, if an instance has a feature 1 value greater than 5, it belongs to the red class. Otherwise, it belongs to the blue class. Decision trees create a hierarchy of rules that progressively divide the data, making it easier to classify new instances. And just like that, you've been introduced to your first machine learning algorithms. However, this brief explanation is just the beginning. Truly understanding these algorithms requires deeper exploration, learning how they are implemented in code, understanding their advantages and limitations, tuning their hyperparameters, and knowing when to apply each one. There are hundreds of machine learning algorithms, each suited for different tasks. I just wanted to introduce you to the way of thinking in machine learning. Now, let's move on to the final chapter of our fundamentals. Up until now, we focused on classification, where the goal was to determine whether an instance belonged to a specific category, such as identifying whether an animal is a cat, yes or no. But what if instead of predicting a class label, we needed to predict a numerical value? For example, imagine we have a dataset containing the size feature of rental properties and we want to predict the rental price of a new listing based on this feature. Unlike classification, where the output is categorical, here the output is continuous. This type of problem falls under regression. We will start by exploring linear regression, the most fundamental regression algorithm. Starting from the ground up, this is a linear. A linear has a point B where it intercepts with the y-axis, in this case 1, and a value m that defines the slope of the linear, which in our example is 0.7. Taking a closer look at our rental price dataset, we could once again plot the data and now try to draw a linear that goes into the same direction as the data points. With the help of this simple line, we could already assume what the rental price for an instance with the size 850 would be. However, our line is not predicting the data without any flaws. We can even see its error by looking at the distance between our line and the actual data points, or calculate it by subtracting the actual value minus our predicted value. There are many metrics to measure an error, but we will continue with the sum squared error. If we now rewrite our linear formula using vectors, we will have weight 0 and weight 1 instead of b and m. And because we decided to use the SSE as an error metric, we can now combine those two. In this formula, t is our true output value, so the white dots in our feature space. Weight 0 is a bias term, weight 1 is the weight for the specific feature, and d1 is said feature. Taking it back to our dataset, d1 is our size feature, and the whole formula now describes the squared error loss function of our linear. We will always be trying to minimize that error because a smaller distance between the actual value and our prediction optimizes our regression model. But to minimize the error, we need to know the exact values to put in as our weights. What comes to mind is to just try out a lot of different combinations, calculate their errors, and use the weights that result in the lowest one for our regression algorithm. But we can make this more efficient. Let's look at a one-dimensional example with only one weight. Calculating the error, we can also plot the error surface to its weight. The weight with the lowest error should be at the lowest point in the plot, right? Well, this is exactly what gradient descent uses. It is essentially trying to iteratively find the lowest point in the error surface, getting closer to it step by step. Gradient descent is a popular mathematical optimization method, so let's see how it actually works. We start at a random weight and update the value of the weight based on the slope. We want to move into the direction of the steepest negative slope, minimizing the slope until we reach a convergence criteria or a maximum amount of iterations. The weight itself is then being updated by taking the current weight, summing it with the learn rate that we have to set at the beginning, and multiply it with error delta. The learn rate alpha determines how fast the algorithm reaches its convergence criteria. The error delta is the crucial step of the gradient descent. To understand the error delta, we once again need our loss function. Because we are talking about slopes, we need to calculate the partial derivative with respect to the specific weight. The whole derivative looks something like this. Let's take a closer look at this part. Since we just calculated the derivative, which is the direction of the steepest positive slope on the error surface, we need to take a step into the exact opposite direction by just removing the negative sign. To consider multiple features, we can now sum it all up. So, we just revealed what's behind the error delta and are now done with our first optimization method. And with that, you've reached the end of this introduction to machine learning fundamentals. Of course, this is just the beginning. Every topic we discussed could be studied for years. The goal of this video was to give you a fundamental understanding of how machine learning works and what the way of thinking looks like in this field.